Ihsan al-Haq from University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, on Bediuzzaman Said Nursi's view on education, the Bangladesh perspective. And the final presentation will be by Hafiz Mustafa Riza Ahmet from University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, on the impact of the Risale-i Nur on humans' lives, the Bangladesh perspective. So without further ado, I want to give the floor to brothers Vaffi, Foday Sharif, and Adam Yusuf Adam for their presentation. The floor is yours. You have 15 minutes. Please try to stick with it. And let's leave some space for the questions as well, please.
Very much. So, go on. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Yes, clear, please.
As it has been introduced, our topic dwells on the title and assessment of the Nursi's perspective on the role of faith in building a socio-economic balance in the 21st century. I cannot be able to share my screen. I don't know why. While I'm presenting, we will be able to upload it so that you can see
Brother Adam,
PowerPoint
it can be related to connection quality. If you cannot just do it verbally, please. You can just check for yourself the presentation. But if you cannot share it, most probably you won't be able to do it. You can just continue verbally, please.
Can I continue?
No, you can continue verbally, but presentation sometimes is related to connection quality. If the connection does not allow, it doesn't allow you to show the presentation, but you can continue. We are listening to you.
Okay, sir. As I presented the paper, it has been divided into six sections. The first is abstract introduction. Then we dwell on the concept and contemporary social economic problem, essence of faith, Iman, and its role, Nursi's perspective on faith and socio-economic balance in the 21st century, where we highlighted some of his ideas and the process by which one can be able to, why the nation can be able to establish a socio-economic balance. I will go directly to the introduction, where I said socio-economic problem is one of the greatest challenges affecting the world today. The approaches in finding the roots of the problem differs according to those who are looking for the problem, depending on their worldview. Islam in general as a religion is a way of life. It established a framework for socio-economic, for socio-religious, political, and economic aspects of human life. The right, it states in Islam, there is a general rule which says that everyone is free to establish trade and make wealth so much as he likes, but the society itself has a right. The right of society is legislated in the Quran in various legal junctions dealing with personal, interpersonal interactions within a given society. The basis from which the Islamic religious philosophy can effectively work stems from the one's conviction and submissiveness to Allah's existence and sublimity of his legislation, that is faith, otherwise known as Iman. It is on this basis that Bediuzzaman Said Nursi expound his ideas on the socio-economic balance. Then talking about this, Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, his ideas on the faith for socio-economic balance, I started by giving a brief biography of the Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, where we said he was Turkish, born in the eastern part of the country and lived between 1877 to 1960. He was a renowned Muslim thinker and religious teacher whose religious educational background shaped his worldview and ideas on the meaning and belief of the universe. To perfectly express his idea and thought on human life, universe, and the ideas, he put in his Mahmud of us, that is Risale-i Nur, the core objective of religion of Islam and affirmation of the truth of the Quran and protecting and strengthening one's faith. Thus, to build a socio-economic balance, Nursi believes that the following strategies must be ensured. First, Nursi believes that for one to establish a socio-economic balance, there has to be a strategy, which we highlighted. So we are now going to give a summary of the highlight. Once we said the faith, Nursi believed that the foundation for establishing a socio-economic balance, that one has to have a faith. The strategy of Iman, according to Nursi, should be solid so that it cannot be watershed by modernity, naturalistic science and philosophy. We know in many pages and many passages of the Risale-i Nursi debunked the ideas of such naturalistic science and modernity. Faith does not start and end with declaration of the kalima. By saying La ilaha illallah does not mean that you have an iman. Rather, it is a journey of strengthening faith and driving knowledge out of the world. That Nursi believes that in everything you can drive a knowledge, that as he presented and demonstrated in his practical lives and ideas. Abandoning faith could quickly turn a person to unbelief, not just being a nominal Muslim, you will become an unbelief, which leads to meaningless and materialistic life, as we see in some other part of the world. Second idea that can help in establishing a socio-economic balance is knowledge, which Nursi called iman tahqiqi. The second strategy in ensuring socio-economic balance, according to Nursi, is knowledge. It makes a person to gain the position of esteemness and progress in this world and in the hereafter. Knowledge makes a person to behave ethically, truthfully, and sincerely through avoiding corruption in the investment of social capital and market transactions. Thus, Nursi sees this foundational base of belief as the seed that gives fruits of pleasure, and liken it with tuba tree of paradise, while unbelief is like of the comb tree of health. Then we are moving to the third idea of Nursi that can help in establishing socio-economic balance, where he called al-amana, which he explained under the human responsibility and accountability. Nursi maintains that the third base of socio-economic balance for modern society depends on the proper understanding of human responsibility in form of al-amana. Those we have cited various verses of the Quran, particularly the Quran chapter 33, verse 72, where Allah says, "Indeed, we offer the trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and they decline to bear it and fear it. But man undertook to bear it. Indeed, he was unjust and ignorant." It is we human beings who chose to have the trust of responsibility, but along the way, we often divorce ourselves from this responsibility. That is why social imbalance, socio-economic imbalance is being created in our society. But if we imbibe such trust, definitely social imbalance will be established. It is for leadership role, according to Nursi, that God honored mankind with all propensities that he enjoys today. The positions we occupy today, the wealth we enjoy, the life we are living, these are to tell us that we have responsibility. So each and every human being should live by the standard of living that he is getting and enjoying. Therefore, it is upon world leaders and their subjects to know that developing socio-economic balance requires efforts in sincerity, because Allah will never change condition of a nation unless that nation is ready to do that. Thus, the Quran 13 verse 11 also says, "Verily Allah will not change the good condition of a people as long as they do not change their state of goodness themselves." Then moving to the fourth point that can help in establishing socio-economic balance is self-restraint and examination for accountability. Nursi says that self-restraint and self-examination should be imbibed and applied in one's life, that each and every person should be accountable of his action. This is what we call self-restraint. It is not everything that you desire to do that you engage into it. But as a human being, you have to see the consequences and implications of your action, how your action will affect others. Failure to do that, that is why socio-economic balance is being created in our society. But had it been retraced back, and then we have self-examination, self-restraint, definitely there will be what? There will be a socio-economic balance. The appearance of socio-economic inequality in the world today has produced among people sufferings that only a faithful person could remind himself and adjust his behavior. As a believer, as a one who trained in the school of Nursi, that everything should be a knowledge to him. When you look at people are suffering, then you retrieve back and see how my actions affect such person, how my intentions affect such person. By doing this, definitely you will retrieve back. And if you retrieve back, social imbalance, socio-economic imbalance will be created. Then he continued to say, therefore, a believer as a transparent and accountable in all his actions, because as a believer, you have to believe in this life or in a life after, you will be made to account of your actions. Therefore, for you to account good deeds, definitely you have to make your actions not effective negatively to others. Therefore, a believer is a transparent and accountable in all his actions, as he holds tightly the tenets of belief. That tenets of belief, it is what put a person within a confined actions that he cannot be able to harm others, which are explicitly communicated to him by the Quran or by the truth of Quran and the truth of reality of life. Thus, social redress with transparency and accountability is seen by Nursi as the best thing man can do to create the desired socio-economic balance required for human social existence in the 21st century. Then moving to the fifth point, socio-economic balance can be established through the compliance of Sharia. Nursi holds that Sharia, that is Islamic law, or the principles of Islamic law, are the most beneficial emerges to the multifaceted human socio-economic crisis, which has caused sickness, disturbances of the mind, and turbulences of the heart created by social imbalance. On this, Nursi criticized classic and modern economic theorists and considered their ideas weak and inconsistent because they cannot solve the socio-economic crisis facing the world today. Yes, that the world is being delved into a problem. Why? Because we are being far away from the reality of the truth of the Quran and the reality of the truth of the reality of life. Therefore, Nursi is drawing us back to the truth of the Quran and to the truth of the reality. When you look at yourself, you look at your surroundings, definitely there is need for readdress. Yet, have they considered the Quran? That is the theory, Western economic theories. The Quranic solution to socio-economic balance, they could have changed their hypothesis and correct their theories to make the world a better place to live. Hence, the Quranic theory and practice of socio-economic balance have been in existence more than 14 years, more than 1,000 years ago. What is only required is total compliance by human beings, wherever and whenever they find themselves to the truth of the Quran. So if we align ourselves to the truth of the Quran, definitely there will be a socio-economic balance. Those 21st century is not accepted. Despite the complexity of the crisis of today, if we can retrieve back and see what is in the truth of the Quran and apply it in our life, definitely we will create a socio-economic balance. Finally, we talk about the Nursi's idea of the positive actions, that one should examine his actions so that it cannot be a negative side, but to be what? In a positive side. Nursi, in the pages of the Risale-i, advocates that a valuable aspect of man's socio-economic life is constricted by divine power and determining, that is qadr. So much so that if man uses immaterial desires of his soul for the minor pleasure of this worldly life, will decay and decompose in the midst of difficulties of this life. Therefore, Nursi is advocating that one should not be taken away by the problems of the world, but rather should retreat back, examine his actions, so that if he himself becomes a good person, definitely he has contributed to the socio-economic balance of the world. If, however, he nurtures his abilities with the water of Islam and lights of belief under the service and servitude of God, and uses his mental faculties through their two aims, a seat of great value and a shining machine containing everlasting truth will be the means of innumerable perfection and luminous fruit to the universe and blessed bounties in the paradise. That if your actions are good, it is an addition of, after enjoying this life, you will enjoy the other life. That is the advocacy of Nursi concerning mitigating the socio-economic imbalance. Then going to the conclusion, sir, generally, the socio-economic system of Islam is based on a clear evidence and balance that is not restricted to an individual to prove it. That is the reality of Islam, the reality of life. It is not meant for only one person to be taken from him. Nursi, as a modern religious thinker, believes that Islamic socio-economic life is based on the conscience of an innumerable matter that are common to heart. Hence, Islam and its system is dependent on two firm foundations, which are revelation and innate disposition. revelation, that is the Quran, and inner disposition is what one conceives in his heart, that is belief. For those two, according to him, that is Nursi, have worked so effectively for many centuries. When we take the life of various prophets that have come and gone, we will see that they have exhibited this kind of connectivity, and they have successful in this life and in the life after they are successful also. That is what Nursi is drawing us to and giving us example of. Nursi does cause that consciousness can be used to work in providing and maintaining socio-economic balance, but should be firmly rooted with principles that cannot be assaulted with irreligiosity, as in the Western concept of life. Finally, he that is Nursi, argues that the essential of religion and the incontestable matters of Sharia are present in the heart to make human beings consciously reminded about God's reality, so that they could always allow to apply them in their day-to-day meanings to realize perfect balance and regular sequence that conform with the principles of the innate of things and unity of God. That is, the Sharia is always reminding of the existence of God, that whenever you want to do something, then you remember what the divine message is telling you. When you do according to the divine message, then that instantly it is reminding you about the existence of God. It is with this that Nursi believes that balance can be preserved and sustained, not only in the socio-economic balance, not only in the socio-economic aspects of the life, but also in other aspects of their lives. Therefore, this is like catalyst. When you hold on to it, definitely your life will be transformed in all its ramifications. I think with this, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. So we thank Brother Adam and Vaffi for the great presentation. I took my notes, and if you have taken your notes, we can, ask our questions in the end of the session, inshallah. And also thank you for sticking with the time limitation. It was such like punctual 15 minutes by you. So thank you very much. So our next session by Brother Habiburrahman Saerozi Nurihsan from the Institute of Oriental Studies on the topic of the urgency of belief in creating positive peace and harmonic social life in the internal Muslim community, according to Bediuzzaman Said Nursi. Brother, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ahmed Subashi. Dear my colleagues, Dr. Vaffi Foday Sharif, Dr. Adam Yusuf Adam from Nigeria, Dr. Muhammad Abdullah Mahmud from Bangladesh, Dr. Fertiana Santi from Indonesia, Dr. Ihsan Lahab from Bangladesh, and Dr. Hafiz Muhammad Riza Ahmed, also from Bangladesh, all Tulabun Nur, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. I am Habiburrahman El-Shirazi, or Habiburrahman Saerozi Nurihsan. I'm from Indonesia, and right now I am a student at the Institute of Oriental Studies in Leipzig University, Germany. It's a truly great honor for me to be a part of this extraordinary symposium. Due to the limited time, to the point, allow me to present my paper entitled The Urgency of Belief in Creating Positive Peace and Harmonic Social Life in Internal Islamic Society, according to Bediuzzaman Said Nursi. Allow me to share my screen. I will try to deliver my presentation as briefly as possible. Let me start with a brief of introductions. This paper intends to specifically elaborate on the urgency of belief or iman in creating positive peace and a harmonious social life within the internal Muslim community, according to Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi. Referring to Galton concepts, peace can be made as positive peace and negative peace. The study focused on the role of belief in creating positive peace in the internal social realization of Muslim. The text analysis of Risale-i is used to elaborate on how belief has very significant role in creating positive peace. This paper is not designed to present a study of tactical steps to build positive peace, yet it focuses on Said Nursi's thought about the urgency of belief in becoming energy and soul in creating positive peace. Then I would like to move about peace with building peace with spiritual roots. Since the end of the Cold War, there have been many new approaches to resolving conflict and building peace on this planet, but the fact remains that peace processes seem to have failed more than succeeded. John Paul Lederer saw, based on his experience as a peace worker, that the process of peace building must be an organic process driven by the authentic engagement, dedication, creativity, obsessions, and vision of people living in the conflict. This means that peace must be born and developed from the inside, not imported on force from the outside. So all Muslims must realize that the importance of creating peace creatively based on the most important lantern in their life, namely the guidance of the Quran. And Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi has written the very clear understanding of the Quran to be the milestone of creating peace in his masterpiece, Risale-i Nur. And about positive peace. In the field of peace studies, there are two definitions of peace. The traditional definition, which is often considered a narrow definition, and a broader definition. In the traditional definition, peace is understood as the absence of violence, absence of war. And broader definition of peace, as introduced by Johan Galtung, is the integration of human society. Johan Galtung regarded the traditional definition as negative peace, while the broader definition is called positive peace. The absence of war is actually the first step for the ideal of more perfect and comprehensive peace, peace that encourages the development of human potential as a whole. This is positive peace, peace that includes all aspects of a good society, such as the preservation of universal rights, ecological welfare, social justice, solidarity, mutual respect, harmonious life, and so on. And the next point is the position of belief according to Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi. Anyone who reads Bediuzzaman Said Nursi's Risale attentively will find that the discussion of belief takes the biggest portions. Belief is the center of attention, the footing, and the beginning, as well as the goal. It was the spirit belief to mankind that Risale was written, as well as to defend it from those who wanted to extinguish its light. Nursi himself said, "Indeed, my duty is to be faithful to belief." I jump to next point. Belief as a foundation in creating positive peace among internal Muslims, according to Said Nursi. Effort to pull out Muslims from internal conflict, social instability, and various diseases of civilization, according to Nursi, begin with instilling belief. According to Imam Said Nursi, belief is a holy medicine for all diseases. Belief is the foundations and root of all goodness and good deeds. After belief, according to Al-Imam Said Nursi, the existence of safaqah, or a sense of compassion, is very important to build a harmonious life. And then Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, I'm sorry, I think it's jam. Okay. According to Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, after belief, Nursi necessitates the existence of shafaqah, a sense of compassion to build a harmonious life. Al-Imam Said Nursi also invited Muslims to strengthen the ties of brotherhood or ukhuwah. Brotherhood is a manifestation of belief, and enmity is sinful. And the very important the study is the concept of positive peace in the Damascus sermon. As we know, while visiting Damascus in 1911, Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi delivered a sermon in Arabic at the historic Umayyad Mosque in order to fulfill the requests of the religious authorities there. The sermon is later known as the Damascus Sermon or Al-Khutbah Ash-Shamiyah. Even though Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi mainly focuses on diseases infected Muslims and their cures, a closer examination will show that there is a positive peace concept tucked away in the sermon the Muslim community should be more concerned about. One of the interesting parts to learn in the sermon was when Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi heard the belief that the ulama, Muslim clerics, and Muslim leaders at that time could not let go of their laziness, which lead to the suffering of thousands to millions Muslims. The behavior of not using the devoting energy and potential to be fools by Nursi is considered a crime. When compared to the context of Galtung's positive peace concept, Nursi's way of thinking precedes Galtung's way of thinking in terms of expanding the definitions of violence. According to Galtung, violence occurs when human beings are being influenced, show what their actual somatic and mental realization are below their potential realization. So there are two main keywords in these definitions, actual and potential. Potential realization is what possibly categorized according to the level of knowledge, insight, resources, and progress that has been achieved in his time. Violence or crime occur when the potential realization is below actual realization. An example given by Galtung was if someone died in the 16th century because of tuberculosis, it could not be considered as the act of violence. However, if it happens in the 20th century, in which the medical world has advanced, it would be categorized as the act of violence, hence allowing the needy suffer from starvation when it can be prevented and overcome is truly violence. It automatically means allowing the Islamic world fall apart and millions of Muslims suffer without any effort made by the scholars, made by ulama and leader of Muslim world to deal with the issue is also categorized as violence and become a crime. In 1911, during the Damascus sermons, Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi uttered the similar ideas with Galtung concept of widening the meaning of violence. Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi cites, "Oh brothers who are listening to the words of mine here in the Umayyad Mosque, and all Muslim brothers in the mosque of the words of Islam 40 and 50 years later, do not make apologies saying we do not harm, but neither do we have the power to do anything beneficial. Therefore, we are excused. Such an apology is not acceptable. Your laziness and saying, what is it to me? And you're displaying no effort and not getting into the working spirit through Islamic unity and through Islamic brotherhood have done much damage and are an injustice to you." The speech was delivered in front of an estimated 10,000 listeners and the Umayyad Mosque of Damascus, in which hundreds of whom were eminent ulama and scholars. It is obvious that Al-Imam Bediuzzaman Said Nursi encouraged them to effort their best potential, not to be lazy and not to ignore the problem of Islamic world. If constant idleness is the causes of millions of Muslims to suffer, then according Galtung concepts, the Muslim leader have committed violence. This is due to the reason that if they were to devote their best potential in the full capacity, then thousands and even millions of Muslims would not suffer. Should the scholar and leader of the Islamic world devote all their potential to create unity in Islamic world, then violent conflict can be prevented from happening. And finally, the conclusions. The study concludes that strengthening belief and creating peace among Muslim communities in particular and throughout the world in general are Nursi's main intentions. Risale-i Nur was written for this objective. Risale-i Nur, on the other hand, specifically accommodate the concept of positive peace. According to Risale-i Nur, belief and compassion in the main concern in creating positive peace and harmonious social life among Muslims internally. The essence of belief requires unity, brotherhood, and a life of inner and outer peace. Belief is the principle for maintaining sincerity, brotherhood, love, and social justice, which is the spirit of appreciating positive peace in life. Belief is no doubt the cure for all illness and the light for all good virtue for mankind. The fact that Syed Nursi has preluded Galtung thinking about the expanding of the meaning of violence related to actual and potential awareness has also been found in this study. I think that's all I can say, and thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Brother Habiburrahman. It was such a beneficial presentation. I took my notes, and thank you very much for the great presentation as well. So our next speaker, let me check if Brother Abdullah is with us so far, but I think no. Okay, so I'll leave the stage to you, Brother Ihsan al-Haq. So the subject of Ihsan al-Haq will be Bediuzzaman Said Nursi's views on education, the Bangladesh perspective. And then once Sister Fertiana or Mr. Abdullah comes back, we can have the next presentation with them. Please take the stage, Brother Ihsan al-Haq. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. Brother Ihsan al-Haq, you're muted. Can you unmute, please? Can you unmute from Zoom, please? Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you right now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Honorable President and other participants and the viewers, thanks a lot. I feel proud to participate in the conference virtually. I am beginning my article. The title of the article, Bediuzzaman Said Nursi's Views on Education, the Bangladesh Perspective. Abstract. The Ottoman Caliphate collapsed in the last century due to lack of timely reforms. In contrast to the Islamic practice of dress and marginal thinking, today's Turks follow Islam within a constitutionally secular structure. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, a leading Islamic scholar and visionary Muslim thinker, played a vital role as the main protagonist behind the scene. He adopted various methods and strategies to bring Turkey out of the then status quo. Educational reform is one of the methods and the strategies. Bangladesh is a Muslim majority country which faces various problems, including the problem in education system. There are two streams of education. The general education represents secularism, While madrasa education represents Islamic education, the general education fails to build practicing Muslims. While the madrasa education can't cope with the modern challenges, however, the madrasa education can't reduce the gap among religious groups. Nursi's thought on education combined religious education with modern scientific education. The main objective of this article is to find out solutions over educational problems in Bangladesh in light of Said Nursi and his thought revealed in Risale-i. The article analyzed the educational model of the great Islamic scholar, his religious subjects. The article analyzed the educational model of great Islamic scholar, his concept of integrated curriculum that promotes teaching of positive science in religious schools or religious subjects in secular schools and their application in Bangladesh. The analytical and descriptive article highlighted Nursi's educational concept that combines quality, religion, science, and morality. The article discussed the concept in Bangladesh perspective and its necessity in the South Asian country. Alongside adoption of Nursi's thoughts on education, his Risale-i should widely known in Bangladesh. A number of research works can be done on Nursi, his educational thoughts, and Risale-i in universities of Bangladesh and in other ways, including initiation of curriculum courses in universities, institutional format, as well as setting up Nursi Center is also needed to study the great sage and spread his thoughts. Seminars, symposium, conference, book publication, and other programs can be taken to explain the necessity of adoption of Nursi's educational concept. The above mentioned issues were touched on in the article. Introduction. The rise and fall of a nation are directly associated with proper knowledge in different fields. Alongside the moral development, progress, and prosperity of any nation and civilization mainly rely on education. The Ottoman Caliphate could not come out from the downfall due to adoption of Western culture and lack of proper Islamic knowledge. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi emerged in that time and worked for the Turkish society as well as the Muslim Ummah. He became a pioneer legend to establish a peaceful society by spreading his thoughts and philosophy, including educational philosophy that is combined between Quranic knowledge and modern science. The prominent Islamic scholar of the 20th century was not involved in active politics, or he did not take part in any political program, but his work, writings, and thoughts influenced the society, politics, economy, education, and other sectors. He specified the disease of Muslims and tried to treat it in Quranic view. He noticed inner conflict. He placed different thoughts, including thoughts on education for the way out. The thoughts contributed to social change and Islamic awakening in Turkey and influenced other parts of the world. The Muslim world is currently facing internal and external problems. Bangladesh is one of the countries of Muslim world. It is the 8th most populous country in the world, with a population exceeding 180 million. The South Asian country is the second largest Muslim populated country. Over 90% of the country's inhabitants are Muslims. Interestingly, about 90% of the people foster the same custom, culture, belief, and thoughts, and the social values. The people live within a territory with the same geographical location and weather. However, Muslims in the country are divided in various religious sects and social and political differences. Weak and divided education system is another major problem, which can be resolved through adapting the educational formula of Said Nursi and the message of Risale-i. Today's world is moving forward to science and technological development. Bangladesh can be benefited in the sector through adapting the Said Nursi's formula. The integration of religious education and modern secular science will be the best way. A biographical glimpse of Said Nursi. Born in a devoted Muslim family in the village of Nursi in Bitlis of eastern Turkey, Bediuzzaman Said Nursi is a proud figure of Turkey. His father Sufi Mirza and mother Nuriya were very honest and pious Muslims. Said Nursi commented about them, quote, I learned humility from my mother and I learned rules and devotion from my father. The Turkish hero became familiar as Bediuzzaman, which means wonder of the age, for his astonished merit. He began his education in a madrasa at the age of 9 and completed formal education at the age of 14. During his formal education life, he continued his education through his own efforts, filling with amazement even his teachers, and his exceptional intelligence assisted him in mastering many different sciences. Later, he studied various branches of knowledge alongside the Quran, Hadith, and Islamic jurisprudence. Nursi studies secular sciences and became familiar with subjects like history, geography, mathematics, geology, physics, chemistry, and astronomy in a short time. As a result of photographic memory, Nursi memorized the Quran by the heart and the most important Arabic dictionaries and several treatises on Islamic law. After finishing formal education, Said Nursi visited a number of places. His reputation was increasing in his young age. Due to his fame, he was invited by the governor of Behan and began to reside there. He took full advantage of the governor's library and studied various issues, including science. He had tried to establish a university, namely Madrasa al-Zahra in Ben. He could not establish the university because of First World War. He, however, took part in the war and was detained by the Russian force. He languished in jail as a war captive. After 2 years, he escaped in jail. He divided his life into two periods. One is old side and another is new side. He was old side during the final decades of the Ottoman Caliphate. Prior to its collapse, Said Nursi joined debates over how to save the 1,600-year-old Caliphate and restore its power. However, Ottomans, who until this time has always been ahead, did not perceive this backwardness. Against this backdrop, Said Nursi put forward many original solutions, most of which were in the field of education. He was a firm believer in science and modernization in the light of Quran, and he placed his thought on the issue. Nursi emerged as new Said during the transition of Turkey from Caliphate to Republic. In the second period of his life, he wrote the most remarkable work, Risale-i. Political unrest gripped Turkey at the onset of 20th century. As a result, about 22 governments were formed in that country from 1908 to 1918, and none of them lasted even 5 months on average. Said Nursi was not unaware about the circumstance of his times and offered solution for the country's problems. In his writings and speeches, he discusses the downfall of Ottoman Caliphate and points out the ways to overcome it. He suffered the most while facing the biggest challenges of holding Islam in Turkey. In 1909, Said Nursi faced trial for reported Ottoman countercoup. He was acquitted later. He refused Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's proposal for being minister. Said Nursi lived much of his life in prison and exile. He supported Adnan Menderes, but the support did not stop him from criticizing the ruling party. The great Islamic scholar composed the Risale-i Nur, aiming to establish link between the Quran and the natural world. Many people consider it as tafsir of the Quran, but it is not a traditional tafsir book. Writing work of the immoral authorship began while Said Nursi was in exile in Barla of Sparta under very strict watch. From 1925 to 1933, during 8 years of his exile there, he wrote two-thirds of Risale-i Nur. His frequent arrest and exile did not stop him from continuing his interpretation of the Quran. In the last decade of his life, Said Nursi settled in Sparta city. In 1956, his written books were allowed for print. The books were collected under the name Risale-i Nur. It has been translated into over 50 languages till now. The great scholar breathed his last in Urfa of Sparta on March 23 in 1960 and was buried in Urfa. However, the army authorities removed the remains of his body from Urfa to an unknown place as late Said Nursi became more powerful to the rulers. His grave has not been traced yet. A brief discussion on Risale-i Nur. After Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's coming to power, Said Nursi realized that Turkey was going to be a secular state. At that time, he decided to revive the faith of the individuals, hence choose a bottom-top approach for social political change. He stayed in Ankara to convince Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Later, in the changed situation, he emphasized on Iman and development of ethical and spiritual strength. The philosopher emphasized on belief, saying that man's true happiness and progress could be achieved through adoption of new forms of education and theology. He fostered all his energies to foster a culture of belief and hold the Islam. His approach towards social change instead of politics was very much different. Said Nursi states, quote, belief is necessary, Islam is necessary, this is not the age of Sufism, unquote. When the teaching of Islam was prohibited and Turkey was facing very unfavorable conditions, at that time, the Risale-i Nur was most effective in this condition in teaching both the theoretical and practical aspects of Islam. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi worked to establish an Islamic community following the pattern of the model society of the Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His approach, thoughts, and philosophy were reflected in Risale-i Nur. It is the most influential and major work of the Turkish hero. Nursi himself described the work as the fruit of his lifelong study and research. He stated that the Risale-i Nur belongs to the Quran. He illustrated the message of Quran through a distinct approach in his magnum opus. The topics which were included in the Risale-i Nur are very diversified and inclusive. The most renowned and outstanding book, Risale-i Nur, is among the most read after the Holy Quran and Hadith in the Muslim world. In his immortal work, Said Nursi showed that there is no conflict between religion and science. He had shown that Muslims were suffering from psychological instability. He worked for a way out, and Risale-i Nur was written from this view. The authorship played a vital role to face attack on Islam and influence of his communism in the last century. Said Nursi placed solution in the changed situation after analyzing the rise of Western secularism. And
Brother Ihsan al-Haq, you have 3 minutes left. So if you want to wrap up, just for your information, you have 3 minutes left.
I can go. I can escape some points.
Please, you have 3 minutes left. Yes, thank you, please.
Now I want to read the point. Said Nursi's thoughts on education in Bangladesh perspective. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi suggested some outlines for integration of knowledge and for a unified education system. The suggestions include examining the reasons for the divergence and difference between various branches of educational system in order to constitute two civilizations, merging the branches of educational systems, incorporating material dimension and moral dimension into unified curriculum. Evaluation of Islam as the proper guide of the science and the father of all true knowledge in order to make closer ulama, Islamic scholars, with Europeans who believe that there is a clash and contradiction between Islam and science. These suggestions are also useful for Bangladesh as the country's education system is also divided, while there is a lack of moral values in the education system. However, Nursi placed suggestion for Muslim Ummah, while the Muslim community of Bangladesh is a part of Muslim Ummah. Now I want to read solution in Bangladesh perspective in Said Nursi's views. Problems in the education system of Bangladesh need to be identified, aiming to help improve the quality of education. Students studying in different systems don't have widely divergent views and standards. It is a major problem. The lack of an integrated curriculum is the bane in the education sector, while the lack of coordination between the religious education system and general education system is blamed for the incompetency. Nursi's formula of unified education system, which makes coordination among all streams of education system, may be a perfect solution for the web. His concept of integrated curriculum based on his educational model, that is Madrasa al-Zahra, can play a vital role to overcome the educational problem in Bangladesh. The Madrasa education system of Bangladesh can be benefited following the concept of Nursi, as he was in favor of democratization and diversification of the Madrasa education so that the rule of division of labor could be applied. Another problem of education system in Bangladesh is the style of teaching. Memorization is still the standard way of learning. Teachers expect their students to memorize a huge amount of data. Courses are not designed to stimulate discussion and analytical thinking. The contemporary research conducted in Bangladesh suggests that there is further need of effective training on inclusive education. But this is not a proper solution. The type of curriculum and teaching method placed by Said Nursi may be more practical to overcome the problem in Bangladesh. His teaching method is directly lecturing method, and he started to teach his students by this method when he was sent to exile in Sparta. Recommendation: Bangladesh problems on various issues, including religious divide of Muslims and educational problems, can be specified in the light of Nursi's philosophy and concept. His philosophy and thoughts on education and the formula should be discussed in detail in the country to overcome the problems. Seminars, symposium, conference, and other programs on education in the views of Said Nursi and application of the formula should be arranged in the country as well as Bangladesh. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi's philosophy on life and society should be discussed, mentioning the reality of his eventful life and activities in the context of Bangladesh. It should also be discussed how the Risale-i Nur influences the society and it is used as a tool for social change, how it can be used in Bangladesh. So it is necessary to introduce Said Nursi, his thoughts on education and his most famous work, Risale-i Nur in Bangladesh. Institutional format is needed to work on the issue. Setting up Nursi Study Center, Nursi Center will be the best way in this regard. This center will promote the work of Said Nursi and Risale-i Nur. Some other institution like school and college can be established in Bangladesh where the message of the Quran in the light of Risale-i Nur will be taught on priority basis. The method and ways of Said Nursi over changing a society from
Brother Hasan, like you have 1 minute additional time, please wrap up for the sake of the other presenter.
I am going to conclusion.
Please.
Conclusion. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi contributed a lot for social change and awakening in Muslim Ummah, upholding his philosophy, thoughts, and methods that Turkish society became the beneficiary. Today they are enjoying the benefits. Bangladesh is stuck in such a situation which faced Turkey in the last century. Bangladeshi Muslims are divided into various sects, groups, and mentalities. A weak and divided education system is one of the major reasons behind the problems. This can be resolved in the light of Said Nursi and Risale-i Nur, which should be introduced widely in Bangladesh to bring a positive change in the country. So, application of Said Nursi's thought and adoption of his educational formula are needed to resolve the crisis. I have skipped various points and some paras. Thanks a lot. I am Ihsanul Haq from Bangladesh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Brother Ihsanul Haq, for the informative presentation. So we can move ahead with Brother Hafiz Mustafa Rida Ahmet, and then maybe we can have the finals, the next speech with Sister Fertiana, and then we can do the final presentation with Mr. Abdullah. He needs to pray Dhuhr, inshallah. So we can do that way, if you don't mind. Or while we have Sister Fertiana here, Brother Hafiz, if you don't mind, we can also start with her, and then we can leave the final 2 sessions to you and to Mr. Abdullah. Is this okay for everyone? Okay. So, Sister Fertiana, Santi is from Ministry of Religious Affairs, Republic of Indonesia, and she will be presenting, inshallah, a paper with the topic of Indonesia's Islamic history of culture coexistence and the Risale-i Nur perspective revisited. Sister Fertiana, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. My voice, is it clear enough?
Your voice is clear. If you can go back a little bit, the camera, yeah. Yes, now it's better, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I will start to share screen.
We can hear you. We can hear you, but still the camera, if you can put some more distance, it would be much better.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you can center.
Okay?
If you're having troubles, no problem. You can just continue. If you're having troubles, no problem. We can still hear you.
Yes. Would that be all right if I share screen right now, or?
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. You can go ahead, sister.
Good afternoon here in Jakarta. Here it is afternoon. Perhaps in Istanbul still in the morning, or I'm not sure. Perhaps
yes, it's morning times. Yeah. Just
morning. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers, my other colleague speakers, moderators, Mr. Ahmed. Good day, everyone. I thank you all for being here today. First of all, I would like to apologize because I entered the link Zoom quite late or very late because I need to attend a meeting that they said that I cannot be replaced, so that's why I'm quite late. I thank you all for being here today on our 12th International Bediuzzaman Symposium. It was an honor, particularly for me, a privilege to share ideas and perspectives of the magnum opus of Risale-i. Our presentation today is under the subtopic of the role of belief in building the culture of coexistence, examples of the culture of coexistence throughout Islamic history. This is my
Sister Fertiana, can you put your presentation into presenters mode, please, so that we can see it larger? Presenters mode. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay. This is the title of the paper that I have written and sent to the committee of the symposium, that is Indonesia's Islamic history of culture coexistence and the Risale-i perspective. The reason why I choose the topic, or I choose the title, because for the past few centuries, the entrance of Islam in particularly Indonesia has been actually discussed widely by scholars, either in the Western, Eastern, and Muslim world, from various perspectives. However, apart from debates and discussions that emerge, unlike in the Arabian Peninsula, for example, or other parts of Asia or in Europe, the spread of Islam in Indonesia was not through defense or warfare, but was considered to have gradually propagated by means of trade activities, as well as assimilations of local culture, local wisdom, and ancestral beliefs. Yet the religious uniqueness resulted from the acculturation of the dispersion of religion in terms of symbols and architectures of houses of worship, worship rituals, as well as interaction and characteristic of typical followers may not have been probably considerably explored. So my paper, my writing attempts at analyzing the need for establishing a culture of coexistence and peace based on the Bediuzzaman Nursi's approach, as well as providing examples of the culture of coexistence throughout Islamic history of religious practices and discourses in Indonesia, which is, I reckon, relevant and necessary in context. So this is our agenda today. We'll go through the Indonesia's complexities of ethnicities, languages, religions, and faiths. I provide these pictures, many pictures of the characteristics, the various typical physical characteristics of Indonesian people. You know, from west to east, from Aceh to Papua, some would say that the distance from west to east Indonesia is like when you travel from London to Baghdad, and vice versa. So how long the distance is from west to east? I myself, personally, honestly, I haven't visited yet the east side of Indonesia, but I have traveled around the world. Let's mention many countries in Europe, many countries in West Asia or Middle Asia, for example, or Middle East, and so on. But I haven't yet visited the east of Indonesia, unfortunately. Well, this is our typical physical characteristic, and as perhaps you have read my paper, we have, you know, more than, for example, like 714 ethnicities and 718 traditional local languages. And some of these local languages, interestingly, have their different written characters and scripts, like this, for example. So, apart from our Bahasa Indonesia or Indonesian language, which use, like, for example, Latin language, like English, like French, and so on. But also we have some characteristic written scripts of local language. Some of us, or some academicians, some Indonesian academicians also learn the scripts of local languages. Also, this is the theories of the entrance of Islam in archipelago of Indonesia. We have 4 theories that are recognized or well known in Indonesia, for example. But however, prior to Islam becoming the most widely embraced religion by Indonesians, the population of archipelago adhered to, for example, animism, dynamism, Mongolianism, Saminism, Hinduism, particularly Saivism tradition, Buddhism, and other local traditional ancestral beliefs. But however, the majority of the population was Hindus and Buddhists, as evidenced by the many relics of the largest Hindu and Buddhist temple in the world, exist in Indonesia. So the entrance of Islam in archipelago Indonesia is believed by the Gujarat theory. They believe that Islam was the first kingdom in Indonesia from Samudra Pasai, which came from the Gujarat, some parts in India. And other theory is from the Meccan or Arab theory, supported by many academicians, for example, like Anthony Johns, Arnold, and so on. So they also believe that the Arab merchants had a fairly dominant trading activity in the archipelago. They married indigenous people and then formed a Muslim community and carried out the da'wah. And the third theory is the Persian theory. Some academicians argued that Islam in Indonesia came from Persia, instead of from Gujarat, for example, because they insisted that there are many cultural, religious activities which have strong connection with the Persia. And the last theory is from Chinese theory. Some academicians were convinced that some Islamic preachers of Chinese descendants had great influences in many kingdoms in Indonesia. So there are these are the 4 theories of the entrance of Islam. So this, I would like to show you some pictures about our cultural religious harmony and Indonesian legacy, for example. Since centuries ago, we already have tradition and philosophy in our culture, like our ancestral. And this is carried out from generation to generation. And also this tradition and philosophy is, in the local traditional languages. It's not in Bahasa Indonesia. Like, for example, like Tela Gandong. Tela Gandong means the bonds of unity by fostering fraternity, one another. And then Torang Samua Basudara, for example, we are all brothers and sisters. Sito, Timo to support each other and live the life. And then Siro Yo Insun Yo Siro, equality, egalitarianism, and fraternity. And also, for example, like Momosat, we're helping each other, Mototadian, Mototampian, Mototano, but all are in local languages or traditional languages. And sometimes it is written in local scripts or local written. And this is considered as local genius, or the message of harmony, tolerance, altruism, and peace, as well as seeking a common platform. And you can see here, this is the fact, like from the pictures here, we have in Jawa Tengah, in East, Middle Java, for example, there is a mosque, and the side of the mosque is the Christian church Japanese. This is the view is very common in Indonesia. And also the Istiqlal and Cathedral, we also have, this is near my office, Istiqlal and also Cathedral. And between the Istiqlal and Cathedral, we have some sort of like, what you call an underpass, if you like to say, underpass, and we can pass the way from Istiqlal to Cathedral. Another pictures of cultural religious harmony and Indonesian legacy. Like for example, we can see here that the Mosque Al-Mahdi, for example, you can see the architecture of the mosque. I suppose, and I reckon, perhaps this is the most unique mosque in the world, because you know the architecture is like Chinese architecture, and then also we can see here like there are many worships from many religions which are side by side. That's why I mentioned earlier that this is a common view or common. You can see this side by side worship from religions in Indonesia, in every corner of Indonesia, and also we have a regular gathering from other religious figures. For example, for example, like in some of the religious festive, for example, they invite another religious figures, another religious leaders, for example, to be together and discuss several issues. And the result in the perspective of religious cultural coexistence is, I conclude there are 5 important ideas. The first is, for example, like in the letter of Risale-i, Nursi had put emphasis on the need for establishing culture of coexistence and peace, because coexistence and peace is one of the most fundamental values in the Quran and Hadith. Nursi insists that the necessity for social solidarity, social stability, peaceful cooperation are amongst religious obligations and core duty, not merely political agenda or national agenda. Nursi gave credence, as mentioned in the Quran, for example, verses 49, 13, that explain Islam embraces peace and cultural pluralism, accenting that God has created and made human beings into races and tribes so that they should recognize one another and create good relations on social life. Because human needs to help one another and should not develop hostility or hatred towards each other. Nursi was convinced as well that races and tribes are created in order to create mutual equal relationships as well as to serve the common goals of worshipping God. As well as some of academicians thought that is this right to, to consider Nursi was also one of the great Muslim figures of interfaith dialogue. To my perspective, that apart from being a great Muslim scholar or ulama, Nursi also one of the great Muslim figures of interfaith dialogue in the 20th century. Because why? Because at that time, in the Nursi era, for example, like he initiated and advocated sincere relations and trust between Muslim and non-Muslims. As a concrete example, when Nursi himself took the initiative to contact the Pope Pius XII in Vatican in 1950 by sending copies of Risale-i and received positive and fruitful responses. He also visited like economical patriarch Athenagoras, the Greek Orthodox patriarch of Istanbul in 1953 on the missions of cooperating with the Christian against the issue of atheism. And what I perceive and consider that at that time, there were not many ulamas or Muslim leaders or figures, you know, from advocated or initiated the relation between Muslim and non-Muslim. So some academicians would consider that he is one of the great Muslim figures of interfaith dialogue as well. And moreover, he also encouraged tolerance, mutual understanding, and cooperation. And these three, according to him, are other three pivotal prerequisites in cultural, religious coexistence as well. And then the education and religious moderation. Why Nursi put emphasis on the education and religious moderation? Some of the academicians I wrote in my paper are convinced that Said Nursi merely focused and was concerned on eradicating secular educations, as it caused degradations of moral and religious values, and that secularism provided solely a weak and fragile social order. However, other academicians would argue that Nursi indeed noticed there existed huge wicked impact, not solely for extreme secular education, but also for extreme religious education. They highlighted that Nursi touched to be moderate in the middle, neither to the extreme right nor extreme left. And then on account of this, Islam also teaches wasatiyah or moderation in religious perspective and practices. So, like we all have read together in the words, for example, in the book, the words, for example, like Nursi also urged that mind should be enlightened with science and heart needs to be enlightened with religion. When two are combined, the truth will be revealed. When separated, there will be fanaticism in the first one and arise doubts on the latter. And also, Nursi's views on interfaith dialogue, some academicians also thought, well, is this a religious pluralism? And others would argue that this is not religious pluralism. But what I'm trying to say is, since the definition of religious pluralism is the view of seeing all religions is equal, so according to Nursi, we have a social life, in society, we need to respect one another, we need to respect other beliefs, and so on. This is research methodology that I wrote also in the paper. I use qualitative, descriptive, historical approach and the grounded theory method. And the conclusion, the final presentation. Conclusion is the as we perceive, as we can perceive right now, the circumstance of the world today is consisting of conflict between the different national egoism, for example, and the world peace is still a long one. So there is an urgency to open up a path to the future that will preserve peace and harmony for nations and mankind. And whether we like it or not, in fact, Muslim world today is facing faith or religious conflicts. Many Muslim countries or countries with predominantly Muslim populations, for example, are under a massive load of bloody wars and socio-religious political conflicts. Multidimensional integration, cultural religious coexistence, and social peace are obviously urgent to be implemented concerning preserving the civilization of humankind. And also, Nursi has given us tangible examples on how to approach and promote dialogues with the aim of establishing a harmonious and peaceful society. And although, even though the practical manifestation of interfaith dialogue from what Nursi has undergone was especially solely between the Muslim and Christians, where probably in Turkey in that era, the majority of the population consists of two adherents of Abrahamic religions, while on the contrary, for example, in Indonesia itself, there has been existing a more complex and multi-ethnic religious society. Cultural coexistence and interfaith dialogues have been carried out from generation to generation with various religions and beliefs. So, surely contributing in maintaining and nurturing religious culture of coexistence, harmony, and peace is a tireless, never-ending effort. In parallel, according to Nursi himself, it is essential of the cultural coexistence and peace itself is reciprocal and has been becoming the core factor of social solidarity, which will eventually result in socio-economic, political, and national stability. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sister Fertiana, for this great presentation. Our next two speakers are Brother Abdullah and Mahmud and Brother Hafiz Mustafa Riza Ahmet. So we can start with Brother Abdullah and Mahmud from University of Dhaka, Religious Diversity and Peaceful Living from Nursi's Perspective, a Critical Study. If our final two speakers can stick with the 15 minutes, then we might have another like 10 minutes for the questions. I have some questions to ask participants. So it would be great if you can stick with the time. Thank you very much. So the floor is yours, Brother Abdullah.
Just I am back from namaz. May I request Hafiz Mustafa Riza to? Sure. Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
But if he's with us, I cannot see him. Is he here with us? Brother Dr. Hafiz Mustafa, are you with us? He's on mute. So, Dr. Hafiz Mustafa, are you with us?
Yes.
So, could you please do your own presentation right now?
Inshallah.
Okay. So, Dr. Hafiz Mustafa Rida Ahmet from University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, and he will be presenting, inshallah, his paper with the subject "Impact of the Risale-i Nur on Humans' Lives: The Bangladesh Perspective." So, the floor is yours, please. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am supposed to be the last speaker or deliberator or presenter. But meantime, Abdullah Mahmud is not wanted to present his paper before me. That's why I am presenting my paper. Anyway, I am presenting my paper. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are praising to Almighty Allah for attending 12th International Bediuzzaman Symposium, which is running from 3 to 4 October of this year. First of all, I'd like to thanks to the chair of this session for Dr. Ahmed Subashi, and I also thanks to the participant of the session. I am presenting an article on impact of the Risale-i Nur on human lives, the Bangladesh perspective. All of the participants of the symposium, especially the chair and the participant of this session, are most aware towards Nursi and his teaching. In spite of this, I am trying from my level best to share something in this regard, perspective Bangladesh as my beloved country. Actually, Bediuzzaman is a name of versatile scholar. He was born in 1877 in the village of Nursi at Hizan in Turkey. Bediuzzaman means the wonder of the age. He changed present Turkey by his thought and philosophy without raft with the government and politics. His main contribution for the nation is the Risale-i, which is a miracle book. The method and teachings of this book is capable to change the unrest humanity. I gather some point here. First of all, introduction, Said Nursi's philosophy and Bangladesh perspective, Risale-i and Bangladesh, evaluation of Risale-i, Nursi's thought and their application in Bangladesh perspective, recommendation and conclusion. First of all, I would like to say this, my article theme is somewhat similar to the article of Mr. Ihsanul Jashim. I am not reading abstract because everybody already get this in our program schedule. I am starting from introduction. The Ottoman Caliphate brought its own defeat by adopting Western civilization in the name of modernity and scientific knowledge. After the toppling of Caliphate, religion and morality came to an end from the Islamic society at that time. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi emerged in that society. He kept Islam alive in Turkey by presenting Islamic teaching and the true meaning of the Quran. Before the downfall of the Ottoman Caliphate, Said Nursi explained Islam in a timely manner and warned everyone about the apprehended impact of the Caliphate. Even after the downfall of the Caliphate, Islam didn't disappear from the Turkish society due to active role of this great Islamic thinker. He did not face the government directly. He was a very intellectual man. With his intensity of merit, he realized that the situation created in Turkey couldn't be changed overnight. Said Nursi concentrated on long-term thinking to overcome the situation. As part of his long-term thinking, he composed his immortal creation, Risale-i. Said Nursi, however, did not exclude the modernity that the Ottoman Caliphate was on the verge of collapse after its adoption. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi appeared as the guide in the Turkish society through creating Risale-i. He became the forerunner of the Islamic awakening. This immortal authorship did not get Islam to be the lost from Turkish society in such a way. He said, kept in Islam burning away from, kept the faith consciousness alive among the people. Today's radical change in Turkey is the result of the apolitical faith-based movement of Said Nursi, as he wrote Risale-i, focusing on the people's modern mentality, which was gripped by materialist philosophy and the Western civilization. He explained and applies the reality of the Quran and faith and disbelief through modern science and logic. Bangladesh, with population of over 180 million, is also gripped Western culture in many aspects, although Islam influences the people on the large scale. In this backdrop, Syed Nursi's thought and message of Risale-i can be helpful in Bangladesh, as the country has reality and necessity of applying the ideas carried in Nursi's writings. Nursi's philosophy and Bangladesh perspective. Bediuzzaman Syed Nursi was mentally an independent and free thinker from his childhood. During his childhood, madrasa in Turkey were run on grant and zakat. The students of the madrasa where he studied used to go to the villages to bring zakat and grants. Syed Nursi would not go there. Once he was called by the villagers to receive some organized fund and grants, but he didn't accept it. This is the beginning of Syed Nursi's exceptional nature and independent mind. All his life he was rigid on the principle of not to accepting gift or cooperation from anyone. Such an independent-minded man became known at his young as a faqih, Sufi, intellectual, a Quranic commentator, and a lively warrior. He became a strategist in defending Islam with a philosophical point of view, considering the then situation of Turkey. He was a follower of the philosophy of his predecessors, Jalaluddin Rumi. Alongside a prominent Islamic scholar, Syed Nursi was also an expert on modern science. He had wide knowledge and wide views on various sides of Islam as a doctrine and various problems of the society in his time. As a result, in his student life, he can captivate the future. He can predict the future of Turkey. He was concerned about the reluctance of Turkish people about religious education during the last years of the Khilafat. Syed Nursi's philosophy about anti-Islamic activities of ruling groups is very relevant in Bangladesh perspective. The followers of Islamic movements in the country want to face any issue directly, but they fail to achieve target ultimately. Syed Nursi teaches us that how Islam can be saved through strategic points. In Islam, the real purpose of political endeavor is not power. The real purpose is to reform the state system in order to get pleasure of Allah and to make the state compatible with the direction of Allah. Compatible with the direction of Allah. Syed Nursi's philosophy was to purify the minds of the people without clashing with the government. The real purpose of this order, in this regard, Usmanu said, Syed Nursi's philosophy was to purify the mind of the people without clashing the government. He had chosen this medium of preaching Islam for a strategic reason. His strategy was appropriate in the context of Turkey at that time. His strategy now can be appropriate in the context of Bangladesh and many other countries. But Bediuzzaman Syed Nursi did not participate in politics directly, but he changed the peace and nature of Turkish politics. He suffered the most while facing the biggest challenges of holding Islam in Turkey. Commenting on him, noted Pakistani Islamic scholar Justice Taqi Usmanu said, Bediuzzaman Syed Nursi's political movement has done a wonderful job of giving religious training to the youth through dawah, preaching, reform, purification, and installing Islamic life in them. After the Second World War, another turning point came to in the life, philosophy, and outlook of Said Nursi. After this World War, many new nation states emerged in the world. Many Muslim countries also gained independence. Said Nursi at that time envisioned a freedom of the Muslim world as the United Islamic State. The European Union is currently a federation of different countries in Europe. Said Nursi may have imagined something like this. His imagination can be implemented in many countries, including Bangladesh. As a Muslim philosopher, Said Nursi's policy of non-violence is more relevant in the context of Bangladesh than the policies of Mahatma Gandhi and Leo Tolstoy. The work of Gandhi and Tolstoy coincides with Nursi's policy in many places, while it does not match in many other places. Both Leo Tolstoy and Mahatma Gandhi had a great impact in the intellectual history of the 20th century through their ideas of non-violence. They had imperial experience in the youth and manhood. Their thoughts are equally based on a kind of anti-modernist or anti-modern European sense of values. That is, they attach greater importance to spiritual inner values than to material values, prepare a simple or ascetic life to an abundant or convenient urban life. Risale-i Nur and Bangladesh. The Risale-i Nur has been defined and described in various ways in regard both to the subject it covers in which it deals with them. It is most frequently described as a Quranic commentary, that means tafsir, and it is various places in the verse itself. The author uses similar expression of describe it. He also called it a kalam work, that is a work of the science of the kalam or theology. Actually, Risale-i Nur is a collection of several books that describe Quranic solutions in the light of the needs of the time. Some call Risale-i Nur letters of divine light. A Bangladeshi senior journalist commented that just as the moon and the sun are divine lights, Said Nursi has spread the light of truth as well as the light of spiritualism through Risale-i Nur, and is still spreading the light. The creation is the culmination of the refinement of thought and the revival of spiritual energy. It changed people from within. I repeat it. It changed, the Risale-i Nur changed people from within, and the changed people silently changed the society. The devotion of the students and the intellect of the teachers provide an individual and exceptional tafsir for people of the world. So far, Risale-i Nur has been translated into about 52 languages. There are multiple collections in English. The complete collection of Risale-i Nur has not been published in Bengali so far. Some books have already been translated into Medina Publications, a publication house of Bangladesh. Some books published by Sojourner Publications are also available in the market. At present, Said Nursi and Risale-i Nur are being introduced to Bengali-speaking people. Said Nursi's thought and philosophy are gradually influencing many people in Bangladesh. Evolution of Risale-i Nur. Said Nursi envisioned a stable society based on Islamic Sharia. He wanted to prevent attributeness, immortality, and degradation through the Quranic medicine. He walked the path with the Quranic thoughts. The Quran was the only standard for him to make decision. Risale-i acts as a Quranic guide to the Ummah. One of the miracles of the Quran is to retrain vitality. The ways were mentioned here to meet the needs of every century. Risale-i is an extraordinary interpretation of the Quran in the light of the 20th century. Risale-i reveals the absolute sovereignty of the Quran and the justification of the advent and prophethood of Muhammad ﷺ. There is a clear discussion here about the arrival of Imam Mahdi and the Dajjal and other signs of the resurrection. In Risale-i, Said Nursi proved that science has been following the Quran for 1400 years. The discovery of science strengthened the reality of religion, the existence of Allah, monotheism, prophethood, life hereafter. All these things are clearly stated. Dr. Morris clearly stated. Dr. Morris Bukaili studied and researched about the Quran and at last came to the conclusion that there is no statement in the Quran that can be refuted by modern science. Said Nursi has proved this in his famous creation. It is why he has given equal emphasis on religion, religious education, and science education. There are some points towards evolution of Risale-i, but my time is short, so I am not reading. I am going to the Nursi's thought on their application in Bangladesh. Bediuzzaman said Nursi.
Dr. Hafiz, you have 3 minutes left, just as a warning, so please wrap up accordingly, okay?
How many minutes?
3 minutes. 3 minutes left.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Bediuzzaman said Nursi worked for a changed society through changing minds of people. He worked in such a situation where people were facing very difficult situation. He adopted strategies to change the situation and become successful. His thought and strategies should be applied in Bangladesh as a solution. One of his thought as well as his thought on education can be described there. The beginning of 1900, Said Nursi came to Istanbul, which was the then center of Khilafat, beginning an idea of establishing an Islamic university, namely Madrasatul Zahra, to be a center of religious knowledge and optimistic science simultaneously. He served as a deliberate division commandant in that east part during World War I. Bediuzzaman was a worrying enough power for the emerging leader of this Turkish people, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, to consider it necessary to seek control over him with offering the position of Minister of Religious Affairs for the eastern provinces of Turkey, a post that Nursi prominently refused. Nursi supported the independence war ongoing in Anatolia. There is no coordination between madrasa and modern education in Bangladesh. Although Islamic knowledge is imparted in madrasa education, there is no curriculum in the madrasa to develop a people competent as a whole. On the other hand, the conventional education system of Bangladesh is able to produce some qualified people, but due to various problems, it is failing to produce fully qualified people and produce good citizens. In this situation, Bediuzzaman said Nursi's education model is relevant. This article discussed Said Nursi's educational ideas, the education system in Turkey at the time, the current education system in Bangladesh, and the reality and necessity of applying Said Nursi's educational ideas in Bangladesh. Recommendation. I am not reading thoroughly, but I point out some recommendation. First of all, to promote Nursi's philosophy and education, we have to do to publish and spread Bengali books widely, to open many Nursi study centers, to arrange darses in houses. Darses mean teachings, to introduce courses at several universities and colleges, to develop relations among Nursis studied people of Turkey and other countries, to arrange seminars, symposium, and workshop, to take widespread initiative to extend knowledge of Risale-i Nur, to popularize Nursi and Risale-i Nur with Bengali-speaking people, not being directly involved in politics and not to go against the government, and to take a step in introduce integrated education system based on religion and science. Conclusion. Lastly, I would like to say Said Nursi is the man behind the beginning of radical change in today's Turkey. The result of his movement influenced the Turkish people widely. He is mingling with the soil and people of Turkey. The people of Turkey at this time know what Islam is based on because of Said Nursi. Alongside Turkey, he is the best asset in the Islamic world. He can be understood without studying Risale-i Nur in depth. In addition, to try to know and understand better, this great says needs to be presented more widely to the modern generation of the world, including Bangladesh and the Bengali-speaking people. Many books of Risale-i Nur and Said Nursi have been published in Bengali language and spread in Bangladesh and India subcontinent. Alongside the translation and publication of these books, arrangement of conferences and workshops in different universities in Bangladesh have influenced a number of people in the country. Extensive enthusiasm has been created among them. However, it is very important to open Nursi Studies Center and introduce courses on Risale-i Nur in different universities of Bangladesh to widely spread the message of Risale-i Nur and the teaching of Said Nursi. On the other hand, Said Nursi's teaching should be applied in Bangladesh to face Western culture and reconcile the conflicting Muslim groups in the country. However, it is the demand of the time to take a step to introduce integrated education system based on religion and science, following the best formula of Said Nursi and teaching this great creation, Risale-i Nur. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we thank Brother Hafiz Mustafa Rida Ahmet for the great presentation. So last but not least, our presentation will be given by Brother Abdullah and Mahmud, inshallah. Brother Abdullah, are you ready to present? Brother Abdullah, we cannot hear you. Brother Abdullah, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear moderator, dear chairman, I'm Abdullah Mahmud from Bangladesh. I am welcoming you and good evening to all. My paper's title is Religious Diversity and Coexistence in the Discourse of Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, a Critical Study. So, excuse me, can you see the slides?
Doctor, can you put it into presenter's mode, please? Yeah, we just...
Presentation, how it could be?
Yeah, that one, yeah, that small icon on the right. There are 3 icons.
Yeah.
At the bottom, the one on the right, next to the percentage. On the left of the percentage, it says 69%. It's on the left. If you click on that, it should be making it like the one on the left. Go to left, please. The left of the percentage.
Yeah. Percentage, Here.
There's a, yeah, just click on that icon, please. Yeah.
Like this?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep,
now.
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Please go
Sorry. So my paper's title is Religious Diversity and Peaceful Living from Bediuzzaman Said Nursi's Perspective, a Critical Study. So basically, Said Nursi's view, religious diversity is not just a human plans. It is basically that Allah's one of the Allah's plans. So while this is Allah's plan, so no Muslim can ignore it. Very ironically true, Western academics and missionaries, they're working for religious pluralism, religious dialogue, interfaith harmony, but without any religious guilt and religious flavor. Basically, all those people who are engaged in pluralism, religious dialogue, and interfaith harmony, basically they are the Catholic and some Christian, religious notion behind them. So Said Nursi, he observed when Hatti Sharif in 1839 and Hatti Humayun 1856, at the basically the very end of the Ottoman Sultanate, Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, he observed that to some extent, some Ottoman sultans, they have inclination towards Western, particularly the French political and bureaucratic agendas. So that's why Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, he elaborated his ideas about religious diversity and peaceful coexistence in his book that was firstly published in Turkey. It is called Munajarat, debate or question and answer with the tribal, Eastern Anatolian tribal leaders and the community at that time. So in Nursi's discourse, Muslim, particularly non-Muslims, are given more privilege than the contemporary other Muslim scholars, and he stands for faith-based cooperation, unity, solidarity, and harmonious coexistence with followers of other religions. But very significantly, it is very important without losing Islamic faith and values, because so-called religious pluralism and interfaith harmony, it is based on the Christian and the secular notion, and to some extent, it is the agenda of neutralizing the practicing Muslim. And it is working particularly in the Muslim world and Muslim communities. For example, in Bangladesh, you see the Catholic Bishops Commission, their main agenda to promote interfaith harmony and interreligious dialogue. So this paper intends to explore the various aspects of the concept of religious diversity as documented in the Risale-i by Said Nursi. So here are very subtle differences between the Western notion of diversity and Nursi's discourse of diversity. I just slightly mentioned earlier the Western notion of religious diversity, religious pluralism, and interfaith harmony. Basically, that was the Christian notion and their Christian missionaries' agenda. And it was first issued, Nostra Aetate in Vatican Roman, and their agenda was to contact with Muslim world and the Muslim community. So they issued the religious pluralism and interfaith harmony. So that's why we have to be very careful. In this regard, Nursi particularly, he advocated religious diversity and peaceful coexistence based on the Quranic, Sunnatic, and the Muslim juristic principles. That's why it is maintaining religious diversity and peaceful coexistence. It is mandatory for every Muslim. So this is very important. And second one is very important. The religious diversity discourse of Nursi, it is not so-called religious pluralism or interfaith harmony. It is totally different. I will give you some examples, but before going to this chapter, we have to understand the Nursi's foundation of religious diversity. It is very important. Nursi, he was, basically encouraged by the Quranic verse. Human beings are created from the single parents, from the Adam and Hawa. That was basically Bediuzzaman Said Nursi's principal argument. And it is the Quranic verse 49, Surah, verse 13. So he was telling that there is, you see, only importance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because of our birth in a noble family, not because of our color and caste, but because of the taqwa. So if you have taqwa, then we will be considered a beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is very important. The second one is very important. 4 categories of workers in the palace of the universe. Nursi has given example, this world as a palace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala categorically created 4 kinds of workers. Every human being and all creatures, they are the workers. He gave the example like this: angels, animals, plants, and inanimate creatures. And particularly the humanity, all they are the categories of workers in the universe, palace of universe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here basically the diverse duties of the worship, and everybody and every creature, they are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their own language and own words. That's why Sayyid Nursi infer from this evidence that the diverse duties of worship resemble and acknowledges diversity in spiritual real as well. Third one, Nursi assumed the whole humanity as an army. Nursi has given the very good example that army has, you see, division. They have different, you see, agencies, and so on and so forth. So everyone, they have the arms, and particularly different types of arms, but it is not that they will fight with each other. They have given different kinds of weapons to protect and to establish the order of the king and the sovereign, and to secure the sovereignty of a particular country. So Nursi infer from this example that we are created in a different country, in different language, in different culture and religion, but it is not that we will fight with each other, we'll blame one another religion like this. And next one, Prophet Muhammad and the companion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the main inspiration in practical life of Bediuzzaman Sayyid Nursi, and he always follows the golden examples of religious diversity during Khulafa al-Rashidun, and he gave many examples from the reign of second Caliph Umar ibn Khattab and fourth Caliph Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu. And the last one, the Ottoman legacy of millet system. Nursi was tremendously inspired by the system, Ottoman millet system, where every religions and every millet, they had religious freedom and religious, you see, free choices. They could easily perform, even they have their own education system as well. So observing all those traditional legacies, Nursi was championed his articulation on religious diversity as in a tune with the laws of the diverse cosmic body. This is very important. And his subscription of religious diversity was accommodating and engaging and offered a more concrete promises for meaningful dealing in multi-faith community question. This is very important. So I'm going directly the Nursi's discourses on religious diversity. I will show here 2 different categories of Nursi's discourses on religious diversity. First one, Nursi's practices religious diversity theoretically, and second one, practically. So we will now focus the Nursi's practices religious diversity theoretically, how theoretically Nursi confirmed the religious diversity and the freedom of other people, other faith communities. Nursi advocates freedom, security, protection, job and position according to one's talent, irrespective of his being Muslim or non-Muslim in a Muslim land. He took initiative and maintained an everyday relationship with non-Muslims. Nursi practiced religious diversity theoretically, practically, as well as spiritually. He articulated his discourse on religious diversity based on the urgency of the time. He extensively worked for interfaith understanding, future work scope and religious diversity, religious harmony and religious alliances with irreligiosity and atheism were dangerously on the rise. This is very important. So first of all, Nursi theoretically, he wrote and he has given equal status for non-Muslim in a state. There are many courses because of time constraint. I'm going through his quotation. Nursi, I'm quoting Nursi. I consider the Armenians to be the members of the non-Muslim communities who accept the specified condition of governing Islamic regime and who acquired their deserved right and privilege. So Nursi has given clearly the equal status for non-Muslim in a Muslim land. And religious persuasion to non-Muslim. And if needed for dawah and other purposes, Nursi was in favor of religious persuasion to non-Muslim, not with the arms struggle and fighting with them. I am quoting Nursi, our actions toward non-Muslim consist only of persuasion, for we know them to be civilized and we suppose them to be fair-minded. So we should demonstrate that Islam is lovable and elevated. So this is very important. So no oppression, no suppression, no fighting with non-Muslims, but rather Nursi promulgate religious persuasion for them. The Muslim-Christian union against atheism, this is very important in modern age. There are a lot of quotations, just I am quoting two from Sayyid Nursi. Particularly Sayyid Nursi at this time to the people of religion and the truth need to unite sincerely, not only with their brothers, means Muslim brothers, and the fellow believers, means other Muslim believers, but also with the truly pious, it is very important, truly pious and spiritual ones among the Christians, temporarily refraining from the discussion and debate of points of differences to combat their joint enemy, aggressive atheism. It is very important. So this union and unity only to fight against the atheism, because nowadays we know the atheism, secularism, and many other man-made ism basically dominating particularly the Muslim land and the human mind. So that's why Nursi, as Christians, they are the believers and pious, and they are believing in Abrahamic religion. So that's why he is inviting Muslims to make union with Christians to fight against atheism and the current of secularism and many other man-made ism. Thus, both the Christian and Muslim have only one duty, according to Sayyid Nursi, which is to unite with one another to fight against atheism. Therefore, it is high time for believers of religions. It is very important to create an effective alliance and union so that both of the Muslim and Christian can fight against irreligion, atheism, secularism, terrorism, Islamophobia, racism, or any kind of violence in the hope of mankind live in peace and harmony. So this union only to gain peace and harmony in a society. Muslim non-enmity with others. We have keep in mind that Nursi defined enmity as no human being became treated as an enemy. Rather, he advocated for ignorance, laziness, and this unity he treated as an enemy. So he's telling that no human being is considered as an enemy. Nursi continue, for conquering the civilized is through the persuasion, not through force, as though they were savages who understand nothing. We are devotees of love. We do not have time for enmity with humanity. This is very important. He is telling that it is high time to save our iman and to demonstrate Islam as a lovable and very important way of life for modern people. So that's why we do not have time for enmity with other human beings and with other followers of different religions. And another one is very important. Nursi sending Zulfikar to the Vatican in 1951. Nursi sent one of the compilation Zulfikar. It was consist of Mujaja Qur'aniya, Mujaja Ahmadiyya, and Hashir Risale-i. It was not only to give them this book literally. There is a hidden, you see the intention of Nursi to make dawah and not for interfaith dialogue and any other purposes. And he proved that Islam is a you see the religion of Naja, it is very important because before this, Christian community, they didn't consider Islam as a religion of salvation. This is very important. After his book, 50 years later, Nistara Atate, 1965, they acknowledged Islam as a salvating religion of the world. So this is very important. And some argues that because of sending of Zulfikar to the Vatican Papal office, they finally realized and they consider and they acknowledge Islam as a religion of salvation. And Nursi's practices religious diversity very practically. There are many examples. I have chosen only 4 examples. Humanitarian roles and saving Armenians. In 1915, there was a First World War. So there were some captives of Armenian women, children, and the aged people. At the time, Nursi was the chief in command in the Eastern Anatolian region. At that time, he declared nobody can touch the captive of this world. And Nursi, in his own responsibility, sent all the Armenians, children, aged people, and women to the Russia very, very safely. So this is very important. And at the time, if he wished, he could kill all of them, but he didn't kill them. Because of this, many, you see that the Russian soldiers, they help some Muslim war, you see the captives, to make them free and send them to Turkey. In his practical life, very practical life, drinking iron from an Armani Christian, when he was in Istanbul, he used to drink iron from an Armani, despite there were many Muslim, we see iron seller, but he used to go there, and some of his students, particularly Muhammad Frenzy Abi, when he asked him why he is taking iron from an Armani, and he replied that he is a very good man and his iron is very good to drink. So that's why he used to go there. Though he is not from his religion, he is a Christian. Buying grocery from a Greek. This is another one very important. Hussain Jahid Bajara. This is quoted by Shukran Vaidi and Najimuddin Abi. So it is very important. When he was asking the grocery seller, his name is Dimeritos, that was in Daraman, and he was asking that why you are paying or showing respect to Nursi. At that time, he told, you do not know who is this man, means who is Sayyid Nursi. If he was in Greece, they would make him a house out of gold. So this is very important. And he used to buy his grocery from a Greek, though he was not, he is from his own religion. And lastly, Nursi visited to Patriarch Athanagoras. It is very important. Why? In 1953, there was a massacre in Germany, Muslims massacres in Germany, and reaction in Istanbul. There was some massacre happened to some extent. So at the time, Nursi was in Istanbul, and he went there to particularly to counsel and you see that discuss with them that some of the revered Muslim, they did it, but according to Islamic principle, it is not you see prescribed to you see harm or attack on non-Muslim regarding any other issues. So Nursi went there for alliance and unity among the believers of the different religion, and he seeks his help, particularly the Greek patriarch, and he agreed with Ustad Nursi. So this is all from me. So now I'm coming to the conclusion. Nursi's discourse was inspired by the Quran and Sunnah and Islamic corpus juris. So it is very important. So nobody can deny and nobody can ignore religious diversity and peaceful coexistence. Nursi's very important issues is Musbet Harakat doctrine. This is the positive action. So no negative action, no attack, and nothing could be happen towards non-Muslim because of his or her you see difference of faith. Revisiting the definition of enemy, I already mentioned. So there is no human enemy according to Bediuzzaman Said Nursi. Enemy is only the material and object. That is the ignorance, laziness, and disunity. And also, Bediuzzaman Said Nursi revisited the definition of jihad, and he is telling, very important, this issue is very important, is telling that no physical jihad, jihad maddi, there is no one, but in a very dangerous time, we have a spiritual jihad. It is called, according to Said Nursi's, jihad manawi, and it will continue until Qiyamah. So the spiritual jihad, jihad manawi and musbat harakat, it is basically the base foundation of Said Nursi's religious diversity and peaceful coexistence. And members of other faith as friends and allies of a Muslim, it is very important to fight against atheism and some others. So if Muslims could able to establish good relationship with the religiously minded Christians, so most of the human population, 2/3 of the population, they could be in a platform that they are seeking, they are trying to establish peace and security and harmony in a society. It is very important. And formula of overcoming the present negative stigma, it is very important. And Nursi is maintaining that the current practices, if we practice religious diversity and peaceful coexistence according to Quran and Sunnatic prescription, so Nursi is telling that the current practices by some so-called Muslims towards non-Muslim, like extremism, violence, terrorism, could only be eradicated by following the Islamic practices of tolerance and harmony formula, and consequently found Nursi's life, the whole Nursi's life is very important. And for further research, we can suggest some research. This research could not touch the impact of Nursi's discourses of religious diversity in Turkish society. There could be further research in this field to get more practical implication of Nursi's teaching in Turkish society. So Jazakallah khair for giving me chance and for patient hearing. Thank you so much.
We thank you, Brother Abdullah. It was such a good presentation. Thank you very much. I just took a lot of notes. So we came to the end of the session. Wish we could have more time for the questions. I have some notes here. I was planning to ask you some questions. Just I will mention them. Maybe next time, inshallah, we can have an opportunity. Maybe we can have a follow-up. Thank you very much, Brother Abdullah, again for the great presentation. From Brother Yusuf Adam's presentation, I would like to talk more about his emphasis on amana. I really think this is a very key point. So the awareness of amana is key to socio-economic balance, and not retreating and contributing positively is also another principle of harmonious society. I would ask a question around that. For Brother Habibullah's discussion, I was going to ask how he thinks the inner peace provided by the principles of Islam as articulated by Ustaz Said Nursi can also find reflections in outer space, like outer peace, actually, external peace with other communities. I was planning to ask this because he had very interesting points like shafaqa as one of the key aspects of inner peace. I was wondering how it bridges from the inner peace to the plural, to peace within the plural societies. And from Brother Ehsan al-Haq's and Hafiz Mustafa Rida Ahmed's presentation, I realized that both were saying setting up a Nursi center is needed in Bangladesh. I would rather say let's take it as a prayer, brothers and sisters. And inshallah, we wish that inshallah we will have that center very soon in Bangladesh. Let's take it as a prayer. And from Brother Abdullah's well-put discussion, I can see that, like, actually, I wanted to ask him a question together with Sister Fertiana. We acknowledge a healthy religious diversity as prescribed by Sharia, and but however, we know that the truth is one. So the fact that human dignity requires religious freedom does not change the fact that all servants of Allah, regardless of whether they are aware of their creator or not, have the same existential yearning for the truth and the need to connect with the true God. So what I understand from Mr. Abdullah's presentation is Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, in a way, has been the voice of this universal call, and he has found a balance between respecting other beliefs and the awareness of the universality of his call as a Muslim luminary. Actually, I believe his respect to others helped him to propagate his truths by appealing to the human dignity and fellowship. Actually, the idea of Muslim-Christian union against atheism and his sending Zulfikar to Vatican, as mentioned by Brother Abdullah, are very good examples of this. And from there, I wanted to ask Sister Fertiana, bearing in mind the plural nature of Indonesian society, I would ask her how they reconcile these facts, the fact that we need to respect other religions, while we know that any human being, regardless of which religion they belong to, needs the universal truths of Islam. How they reconcile these facts and how it is reflected to policy. I mean, how can we propagate the true message of Islam while not damaging the balances between the plural communities? That would be my question. But inshallah, maybe in another session together, we can find answers to those questions and dig deeper into the great subjects that were raised within that session. So as a closing remark, I'd like to thank you all for the great presentations and your efforts and time. And inshallah, we are expecting to see again in the following symposiums as well. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.